Hello, welcome to the Good Old Days of Radio show. This is John Tifteller, your host, and we are going to start a new little mini-series today, and we have help. Always good to have help because I know quite a bit about little bits of radio, but there's all kinds of things I don't know anything about, and it's always good to have somebody come along and fill in all the pieces that I don't know when we do one of these shows. And we've had this particular guest before, and he did an outstanding job in filling in all kinds of stuff I had no idea about. And we had a little conversation just before the recording began here today. And once again, he's got all kinds of information that I knew nothing about. So I'm not going to do as much talking on this particular series of programs as he is, but I'll chime in every now and then when appropriate and keep things moving along as best I can. So, what are we talking about here? We are talking about a 10-part tribute to somebody that we've featured programs written by this person on the Good Old Days of Radio show in the past, but we've never saluted them with a series of 10 programs, one after the other. I don't know anything about this particular author other than I have heard a number of these shows in the past, and I've heard them all now for this particular series, but I don't know anything about them personally. I was reading something that had been written by somebody else within the last couple weeks in which they described this author as a modern-day Edgar Allan Poe. Now, I ran this by producer Daniel, and he looked at me quizzically like, oh, well, I don't know if I think of him as Edgar Allan Poe, but okay. And I don't know what our guest is going to say when I turn the microphone over to him. But that is the way this person has been described. His name is Cornell Woolrich. He did not particularly write radio plays. He wrote short stories, and those short stories were turned into radio plays. Many of them appeared on Suspense, the legendary theater of thrills from CBS, and a few of them escaped onto other shows like Escape, but mostly Suspense from what I've been able to tell. So anyway, knowing nothing about Cornell Woolrich, I'm going to introduce our special guest, Dr. Joe Webb, and you'll remember Dr. Joe Webb from our Suspense, Salute to Suspense last year. And he's back predominantly, I guess, because there's a lot of suspense shows here, and he has done extensive research on that show and all the backstories and shows about the writers and the actors and the events that surrounded it. And so he can fill in all kinds of things to make these shows even more interesting than they already are. So welcome again to the Good Old Days of Radio show, Dr. Joe Webb.
Thank you very much. It's very good to be here once more.
Okay, so today's show, and we're going to have 10 of these. This is just the first one. Today's show is an episode of Suspense from July 6th, 1943. It's called The White Rose Murders, and now I'm going to leave it to Dr. Joe to tell us what he wants to tell us before we hear it, and then he'll tell us some more after we hear it.
Okay. Well, Cornell Woolrich was a very, very popular mystery writer. His work would appear in Black Mask magazine. He also had a number of novels published, somewhere under the name William Irish. We can get into why he used that name some other time, but most were under his name. He was extraordinarily popular, but he was not as highly regarded as people such as Dashiell Hammett. He was more of a popular writer. And he probably could have had a lot more success than he actually did. I mean, he was very successful compared to the way most writers' careers turn out. A lot of his radio career was his work being adapted for Suspense, but also for Mole Mystery Theater. It's generally believed that the Suspense productions are the best ones for his work. And anytime his movies were adapted, they may have been on Screen Guild Theater or Lux Radio Theater. Most of his radio productions ended around 1950 as he got more and more involved with his work being on television and also in the movies. I mean, it's hard to think of a film noir period without a lot of Woolrich novels and short stories being adapted to film.
So what do you think of the person who said he was a modern day Edgar Allan Poe? Do you think that's an exaggeration, or do you think that's accurate?
Oh, it's an easy comparison. But Poe is very, very well known, considered to be classics. But remember, at the time that someone made those particular comments, I guess Poe had been dead, and his work had been revered for a very, very long time. I don't think Poe was as prolific as Woolrich was, but Woolrich was considered more of a popular writer and not necessarily deserving of that kind of respect. But he had those kinds of mysteries. Some of them are, really. I think one description I heard was, all his stories move at a frantic pace, and you shouldn't be reading them slowly. I guess, and if you think of that particular comment by one of the researchers, that's a perfect situation for suspense, because suspense stories that worked well had a kind of a frantic pace to them, of somebody in trouble, and the Woolrich stories, in addition to them being in trouble, everything seems to go wrong all at once. And then they gradually get out of it, or plays out in some kind of interesting way. We've already done one of these stories, the 3 o'clock, in our past series.
Yes, I remember that. And that's one that you actually turned me on to, that I had never, ever heard. And I wound up thinking it was one of the best episodes I'd ever heard after I heard it. So
yes, and I still feel that way. I think it's one of the greatest radio performances ever done. So if people want to go back to hear how Van Heflin and Suspense presented 3 o'clock, they should go back into the archives and find that. It's an incredible story.
Yeah, you can search that. You can search that on the Good Old Days of Radio show. I think we have a search service on there. Yes, we do. So just look up 3 o'clock with Van Heflin from Suspense, and you can listen to it there.
And many of these shows, while they're not as classic as that, most everything that we're doing has something really special about it, and are extremely good. The Woolrich stories, well, Woolrich's name could draw an audience on radio. That's one reason why he was on Mole and also on Suspense, because his reputation was starting to build, and his popularity was starting to build. So people would listen when they would hear that it was a Woolrich story. And they generally, they don't disappoint. I mean, if you've got somebody who knows what they're doing in terms of adapting his work, and you've got the really good actors, when you start adding in the mix of the suspense orchestra and the really good direction, the stories come to life in a much, much different way than you would expect, or that other series would have. Now, today's White Rose Murders is... It's a good story. It's an interesting story. You've got a young woman who's got a boyfriend who's a homicide detective. Not everybody does that, and he's having trouble solving a case, and she decides she's going to help by posing as a potential victim to set a trap for the killer. I mean, this of course happens every single day, but you get a sense of it. This is like a TV movie, or this is like a B movie, and a lot of the things play out like that. It's kind of unlikely, but go along for the ride, because the story is very, very good. And this is interesting casting, because it's got Maureen O'Hara, who's 23, and an actor, Fred McKay, who was 38. And it's a reminder that on radio, as long as your voices sound appropriate, the performers could be of any age.
Yeah, that's true.
So this works out very nicely for that. But there's an interesting sidebar to this story.
Okay, we're going to hear that afterwards, I guess.
We can do that right after. Why don't we do that then?
We want them to hear the show, draw their own conclusions as they're listening to it about what this mysterious sidebar could be, and then you'll reveal it at the end. See, we're going to keep them in suspense just like they do on the show.
Right. So when this originally was published, it was in the March 1943 issue of Baffling Detective Mysteries. And the original title was The Death Rose. And it was adapted for suspense by Robert Tolman, who worked with William Spear on many, many of the Sam Spade episodes.
Right, yeah, he's most associated with Sam Spade. But hey, Sam Spade's good too.
Yes, and it wasn't on the air at this time, so he needed the work.
Nope. Okay. All right, so is that it as far as the setup goes? We're ready to do the show?
Let's get into the show.
All right. From July 6, 1943, The White Rose Murders, written by Cornell Woolrich and starring Maureen O'Hara.
Suspense. This is the Man in Black, here again to introduce Columbia's program, Suspense. Our star this evening is Miss Maureen O'Hara, whom you've seen rise to stardom in Hollywood within the short space of a year. Her performances in the 20th Century Fox production, How Green Was My Valley, then more recently in The Immortal Sergeant, and now currently in the RKO production, This Land Is Mine, have given her an enviable place in the ranks of America's new film favorites. Miss O'Hara makes her first appearance on our suspense stage tonight as the heroine of A Study in Homicidal Mania, The White Rose Murders by Cornell Woolrich, which is tonight's tale of suspense. If you have been with us before, you will know that suspense is compounded of mystery and suspicion and dangerous adventure. In this series are tales calculated to intrigue you, to stir your nerves, to offer you a precarious situation and then withhold the solution until the last possible moment. And so it is with The White Rose Murders and the performance of Maureen O'Hara. We again hope to keep you in suspense. He stood there waiting. He knew that presently they would come out of the second-rate dance hall, out into the dimly lit street. He listened a while and smiled as the orchestra played that tune inside. And then they came out, the two girls, and still he waited, close enough to hear what they were saying.
Well, I'll see you at the office tomorrow, Sally.
Oh, I don't know how I'll get up. It's after 1 o'clock. 6 hours sleep. Oh, I'll be dead tomorrow.
Me too. Oh, gosh. I gotta have at least 8 hours or I'm no good at all.
I wish I had someone to walk me to the bus. It's 4 long blocks.
I'll walk you down, Sally.
Oh, don't bother. We go in different directions.
It's no trouble. Really, I don't mind.
Well, really, it's not necessary.
Come on.
In the narrow alley that divides the dance hall from an ugly office building, he stood smiling. Just a little inside the alley, he stood stiffly against the wall, his head back, eyes closed, arms straight down, and in his left hand, a white rose.
Well, all right then, Sally. Good night.
Good night, Joan. See you in the morning. Dum, da, 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 dum. Da, 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 dum. Dee. Oh, I hope I don't have to wait long for the bus. Who are you? Keep away. Keep away from me. Let me go. Let me go.
The girl is dead. Tenderly, the figure straightens her hair and gently places the limp body on the ground. Then he opens her clenched fist, and carefully, so that the thorns will not bruise her flesh, he places in her hand the white rosebud.
Pardon me, my good man. Is it true that you are the famous detective Terence Riley?
Huh? Oh, Jenny, I didn't see you come in.
Well, now that I'm here, how about offering to buy a cup of coffee for the girl you're going to marry? If you can ever get up enough nerve to ask her.
Oh, it's no use, Jenny. I guess we better call it quits. I'm just a dick on the homicide squad, and that's all I'll ever be.
And I'm a rich debutante.
We don't belong together.
Oh, you've been reading too many of those romantic stories, Terry. What is it this time? What's wrong?
Yeah, they call him the White Rose Killer. And he's got to be caught. There's a general demotion coming on if he isn't, and that's all I need to get back into uniform.
Oh, don't worry, darling. You always look good in blue.
Yeah. Just to match the way I feel.
Tell me more about the White Rose Killer. What's he like?
That's the stumble. He could be anybody. No one's ever seen him except the dead, and they don't talk about it afterwards. Just slips out of the shadows and kills and then slips back again.
How many has he murdered?
4. And he's not through yet. It's going to be one of those chain things if he's allowed to keep on.
Are you sure it's always the same one?
Yeah, that part of it we're sure of. It's the same touch, the same way of operating every time.
How do you know that?
Well, it's a rose. A white rosebud. A death rose. Puts it into each victim's hand after he kills her.
Her?
Yep. It's always a woman. A young woman between 19 and 23.
What's behind it? Do you have any idea?
Well, I'm not sure. But here's what I figured out. You know what a rose stands for. Symbolically, I mean.
Why, yes, it's the flower of love. The white rose, the bud, has another meaning. Purity, loyalty, devotion, and especially it stands for a young girl.
That's right. And that's about the way I see it.
So maybe it's a double cross, committed against our murderer by some young girl whom he worshipped and who betrayed his faith in her.
You ought to be a detective, not me.
Thanks, darling. I've got a very fine teacher.
Sweet. There's another thing. The murders were all committed near places where there was music, dance halls, and cabarets and the like. There's a song that brings back the original shock that, gives him the final push over into the darkness. As far as we can figure out, it's the beer barrel polka.
Well, how does he commit the murder? Is it always the same way?
Always. Strangulation between the hands, with the thumb into the windpipe to keep his victims from crying out.
But isn't there anything else you know about him?
No, that's why it's so hopeless. He's insane, of course. But there's only this one phase to his insanity. Probably perfectly normal in appearance and behavior. You could pass him on the street and even know it. Well, it's only when he sees someone vaguely like the girl he loved and hears that song, the one defective wire in him is jangled and short circuit.
But, Terry, the flowers, don't the flowers tell you? He must get them somewhere you could trace.
Well, we don't know where he gets them. Maybe he steals them or...
Terry, what if you were the one to get him?
Well, it would mean a citation and a promotion.
And then all the things that stand between us would disappear? We could get married?
Well, the chances would be a lot better anyway. But what chance have I? Everyone in the department has been working their heads off for weeks and they've all failed.
Uh-huh. Terry, what were the girls like? The ones he killed?
Well, as I told you, they were all between 19 and 23. Their heights were pretty much the same, too. They're all tall girls, around 5 feet 6 or 7. Little taller than you. And all dark-haired.
How did they wear their hair?
Why, they... Say, what is this?
Oh, nothing, darling. Just interested. How did they wear their hair?
Well, from what I remember, they wore it sort of loose and curly down the back.
I suppose each one had a resemblance to that long-dead love of his.
That's probably it. Well, anyway, that's how the record stands. And we're all waiting for it to happen again.
I see. Terry, I'd like to go home now.
I shouldn't have told you all that stuff. I've given you the creeps.
Oh, come on, Terry. Take me home.
Later, Jenny stands by the window in her room, looking out, thinking. She doesn't move for a long time. Then suddenly, quickly, she goes to her closet. begins to rummage through her many pairs of shoes. Carefully, she picks one pair with 3-inch heels.
5'6" or 7.
Then she walks quickly to the dresser, opens a drawer, takes out a comb, and starts redoing her hair.
Worn loose and curly down the back. Well, here we go. Edward!
Yes, miss?
Is the car ready?
Yes, Miss Virginia. I've been waiting for you.
Let's go before Mother sees me.
Your mother's been looking for you, miss.
I hope you didn't tell her.
No, Miss Virginia, I didn't.
Good. Come on, Edward.
Where do you wish to go, Miss Virginia?
The Starlight Dance Hall on Grove and 2nd Street.
The Starlight, miss?
Yes, Edward, that's the place.
I wouldn't go there unescorted if I were you, miss. It's one of the worst places in the city. Has a very bad reputation.
The Starlight Dance Hall, Edwards.
Very good, miss. Very good.
Ginny walks slowly around the low-lighted dance hall, trying to make herself conspicuous. A tall figure leaning against a pillar watches her intently as he idly smokes a cigarette. He doesn't seem to belong there. His clothes don't have the nattiness of a dance lover. Ginny pauses not far from him. Deliberately, he throws his cigarette on the floor, steps on it, and slowly walks over to her.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
You're not with anyone, are you?
Oh, no, I'm alone.
I thought so. I've been watching you all the time.
Have you?
I haven't seen you dance yet.
I don't know anyone here.
How about dancing with me, then?
All right.
Come on. Let's go out on the floor.
Do you come here often?
No. I never go to the same place twice.
You don't? Why?
I'm always looking for new faces. I'm restless.
Do you find the faces you're looking for?
Listen. Listen to that song. I like that. I like it very much.
Yes, it is a nice song.
You know, you remind me of someone I used to know. I'm trying to think who.
I do?
Yeah. You mind if we stop dancing and go over and get a drink?
No, let's go.
Oh, look. They sell flowers here.
Yes, I see.
I'll get you some. What kind would you like?
Oh, any kind. You pick it out.
All right. Let's see. There's something kind of innocent and young about you. Different from most of the girls that come here.
Can't we stay here a little longer?
It's intermission now. They won't play again for 10 minutes. Come on.
But I like it here. Let's stay a little while longer.
Well, then let's go down for some air. We can come back in a few minutes. Come on.
But...
We'll be back before the music starts.
Oh, you're hurting my arm.
Am I? I'm sorry. Fresh air smells good, doesn't it?
It's so dark here. Let's go back.
You're not scared, are you?
Oh, no, it's
Let's walk
just
down
that
this alley and back.
Please.
No, you
Let me
don't.
go.
Thanks. That's a lovely necklace, beautiful.
Why, you're just a cheap
Shut
thief.
up.
All you wanted was my necklace.
So long, beautiful.
Look out.
What's the matter?
Behind you, look.
Holy. She's dead. A girl. Murdered.
With a white rosebud in her hand.
Well, Ginny, happened again last night. Just like the other times. The girl strangled in an alley and a white rose in her hand.
Any news of the killer?
No. He might just as well float through the air for all the trace he leaves.
He must have bought the flower upstairs in the dance hall. He must have been there earlier, bought it, and saved it
No,
until...
there was only one rose sold up there all night. And to a man who had a different girl with him. We had the flower girl at... How did you know that they sold flowers there? I didn't tell you.
Well, I must have read it somewhere.
You couldn't have. Wasn't in any of the papers. No details were given, just the statement that an unidentified body was found.
Well, I just imagined that they'd sell flowers in a place like that.
Well, I'm glad you don't go near those dance halls. Why, with this nut running around loose...
Don't bother about that. We'd better catch this killer. And fast.
Where do you get this we stuff? To hear you talk, you'd think that you were on the case, too.
Wouldn't you think so? To hear me talk?
Again, Jenny tours the low dives, hunting for the White Rose Killer. Her search carries her to the waterfront. And as she walks past each dingy bar, she listens to the jukebox music. A little after midnight, she passes a dirty windowed saloon. The thin music catches her ear. She pauses and listens, her eyes alive for some sign, some indication of the person she's looking for. Then suddenly her body becomes rigid as her eyes fall upon a figure huddled in the shadows.
Someone's watching me.
Slowly, she starts to walk up the street. Behind her, the heavy tread of a man's footsteps keep pace with hers. It's a quiet tread, unhurried but deliberate. For several blocks, it keeps the exact distance. Jenny starts to walk faster.
I've got to know if he's really following me.
The man quickens his pace. Jenny starts across the street. The man follows. She's sure now, sure that the man is following her. She fumbles for something in her purse. Her hand closes around a gun.
If he tries anything, I'll shoot.
You in any trouble, lady?
Oh, no, officer. It's all right. You scared him away.
Scared who away?
Oh, just a man who wanted to bring me flowers. That's all.
Well, he brought you one anyhow, lady.
What do you mean?
Right there on the ground, right by your feet. A white rose.
Coffee, Mabel.
Sure, coming right up. Here you are.
Terry. Terry.
Hello, Jenny. Sit down.
Thank you.
Say, what's the matter with you?
Look, darling, read the gossip column in this paper.
What daughter of a socially prominent family is that way about a detective and waits for him outside the station house in her limousine every night? Private chauffeur and all. But Mama says no. That's not so funny.
Oh, they held a big family war council over me just now. Indian powwow, feathered headdress and everything.
They did, huh? Well, what'd they decide?
Oh, I was asked to give my word that I wouldn't see you anymore. I refused, of course, so I'm to be exiled.
Where to?
Our summer home. It's just a few hours out of town, but I'll be there all by myself. Just with Mrs. Crosby, the housekeeper.
Oh, maybe they're right. Why don't you listen to them?
Are you on their side, too?
No. When you leaving?
Right away. Edwards is driving me out. I just slipped out to let you know. Here's the address and phone number of the place in case you want to reach me. Don't lose it.
I won't.
Well, what's new and exciting about the White Rose Killer?
Our famous lover of flowers? We're still trying to track him down. I suppose I'll go looking for him at the flower show that's just opened.
Oh, a flower show just opened?
Yeah.
Well, goodbye now. I'll be seeing you. What floor is the flower show, please?
3rd floor, miss.
3, please.
Third floor.
Where's the rose display, please?
To your left, over there. See where the man in the gray coat is?
In the gray coat? Oh, yes, thank you. They are lovely, aren't they?
Oh, you startled me.
I'm sorry. I was just admiring the roses.
Oh, yes, the nicest flowers here. I just can't keep my eyes off them.
Yes, you can feel that way about some flowers.
Well, that's the way I feel about white roses.
Have you been here long?
I really don't know. I suppose so. You see, I've come here every day since the show opened. I like to be near the roses, the white roses.
Those big ones are nice.
No, I like the little ones best, the little tightly curled rosebuds. They're so little and innocent. Oh, well, I really better be going. Are you going down?
Yes.
Down, please.
Here, miss, I took a rose for you.
Thank you. It's lovely.
Would you care to have a drink with me?
Why, yes, thank you.
I know of a little place a block or two down there. They have nice music. We'll go there.
All right, whatever you say.
This is it.
Where's the music?
A nickel in the jukebox does it. Any special song you'd like?
No, go ahead and pick one.
Okay. There we are. Oh, that's my favorite song. Reminds me of a girl I used to know.
Oh, excuse me, I want to powder my nose. I'll be right back. Do you mind?
No, of course not.
Seventh Police Precinct. Sergeant Thomas speaking.
Hello, is Terry Riley there?
Just a moment, I'll see.
Please hurry, it's important.
No, sorry, miss. Terry Riley's not here just now.
Oh, will you tell him that I can't keep that date with him. Goodbye.
Do you always go to the phone booth when you want to powder your nose?
Why, I had to make a call.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm afraid I'll have to leave you.
Oh, wait, let me come with you.
I'm sorry, miss, but I've got other things to do.
Oh,
What's the matter?
that car, someone that knows me. Let's get away from here.
That's just what I'm going to do. So long, lady.
Wait, please don't go.
Miss Virginia. Miss Virginia. I'm sorry, Miss Virginia, but I must speak to you for a minute.
Oh, Edwards, what do you
I'm
want?
sorry, miss. You'd better come with me at once. I've been looking for you everywhere. Your mother's been taken seriously ill.
Mother? Where is she?
She's out at the country place, miss. I drove her there shortly before dinner. She wanted to pay you a surprise visit.
Oh,
I believe the shock of not finding you there upset her, miss.
is she very bad?
She had the doctor with her when I left. Mrs. Crosby has gone away for the day. Your mother needs you, miss.
Well, let's go. Hurry, Edwards, please.
Right, miss.
Where is Mother, Edwards?
In her room, miss. You'd better hurry.
Mother? Mother? It's Ginny. Is the doctor in there with you? Mother? Why, there's no one here. The room's empty. The bed hasn't been touched. Edwards, what are you doing?
Merely playing a song, miss. A favorite of mine.
A favorite?
Yes, Miss Virginia.
Where's Mother?
She's in the city, miss.
You lied to me.
I'm afraid I did, Miss Virginia.
Why are you locking the door?
You know why, Miss Virginia.
It can't be. You're not the
White Rose killer? But you see, I am, Miss Virginia. Driving you and your family around day after day, sitting there right in front of you all the time. It was amusing to watch you hunting for me. Hunting for someone you saw several times a day.
It can't be. You're not insane.
Of course not. Who said I was?
Edwards, you know I'm not the girl who betrayed you.
Yes, I know that.
Well, then unlock the door and let me out. Please, Edwards.
I've killed 5 times. I've never regretted it. I'm going to kill you, Miss Virginia.
Why, Edwards? Why?
Because you've been so clever. Too clever. You made yourself look like her, the girl who deceived me. I could have killed you the day you first went out looking for me, but I had to be careful.
Oh.
I almost caught you that night at the waterfront, the night I dropped the White Rose when that police car came.
Edwards, I've never done you any harm.
Your sweetheart, Terry. He loves you, doesn't he?
Yes.
That's good. Because now you won't be able to deceive him like my girl deceived me.
Keep away, Edwards. Keep away or I'll...
You thought you'd use your gun, eh? Well, don't think I was fool enough to overlook that. I took your gun out of your purse.
It won't do you any good to kill me, Edwards. I didn't have anything to do with it.
No, and you're not going to have a chance to break another man's heart like she broke mine.
Jenny, where are you?
Terry!
It won't do you any good to call to him. He can't get in here without breaking down the door.
Keep away from me. Terry!
It'll be too late then, because I'm going to kill you now.
Jenny, where are you?
Terry!
Just let me get my hands on that pretty white throat.
Oh, keep away. Keep away from me. Terry! Stop!
Jenny, are you all right?
Yes, Terry, I'm all right.
Oh, take it easy. Here, sit down.
Oh, Terry, I was so scared. There was nobody here but Edwards and I. How did you know where I was?
Oh, it was simple. You were supposed to meet me at the coffee shop. You never broke an appointment, and when you didn't show up, I called the number you gave me. You told me the housekeeper was here all the time. And when there was no answer, I got suspicious and came down. Besides, when I got a message down at headquarters that you had to break a date with me, I knew something was wrong. Are you sure you're all right?
Yes, I'm... Terry, look. On the floor beside Edwards.
A white rose. Must have fallen out of his pocket.
That was meant for me. Oh, Terry, it's all crushed.
Yeah. Crushed and dead.
Just like the White Rose killer.
And so closes The White Rose Murders, starring Maureen O'Hara. Tonight's tale of suspense. This is your narrator, the Man in Black, who, speaking for Columbia, hopes you have enjoyed Miss O'Hara's performance and our play. Next week, because of a special broadcast of the All-Star baseball game, suspense will not be heard. But again the following week, we will be back with another play on this series and more of your Hollywood favorites. The producer of these broadcasts is William Spear, who, with Ted Bliss, the director, Bernard Herrmann and Lucien Marowik, conductor and composer, and Cornell Woolrich, the author, collaborated on tonight's Suspense.
This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Okay, the White Rose Murders. interesting idea with the rose and the girl and all of that. Maureen O'Hara was became quite famous a little bit later on, and I guess the biggest claim to fame nowadays is opposite John Wayne in the movie The Quiet One. Okay, Dr. Joe Webb.
The Quiet Man?
The Quiet Man. I'm sorry, The Quiet One. I don't know where I got that.
Yes.
That's a Peter Lorre reference, I think. But
yes. Yeah, O'Hara made her last film appearance in 2000. So she had a very, very long career.
What was she in just recently? Well,
my
recently.
Notes don't say that.
Oh, okay. Just
2000
recently.
is only 24 years ago, John.
Yeah, I know. But in my world, that's just recently. My world is all 30s, 40s. When you get to the year 2000, hey, that's way more. That's modern day. That's like yesterday. So this ages me rapidly, but whatever. Anyway, okay, so we don't know, but she made her last movie in the year 2000. All right. So I understand from some conversations with you, and I teased it a little bit at the beginning, that there's an interesting sidebar that came out of this broadcast. What was it?
Steve Hodel was a Los Angeles detective, and he started to write true crime stories. And one of the aspects of his life that makes him so interesting was that his father was the serial killer George Hodel, and you could read about him in various places online. But Steve was listening to this episode many, many, many years later, because old-time radio was a hobby of his. And I'm reading from a blog post he made. He says, "A few days ago, I was reviewing an online index of the old CBS suspense theater dramatizations, and one of the titles caught my eye. It was called The White Rose Murders. It was broadcast from CBS's then relatively new Columbia Square Playhouse studio located at Sunset and Gower. The radio dramatization starred the beautiful 22-year-old actress Maureen O'Hara and was broadcast from Hollywood July 6, 1943. Just 20 days before the commission of the White Gardenia murder of Ora Murray." So he's researching some of the crimes that his father committed, and he's starting to sense that the pattern of behavior in this story was the one that his father repeated in murdering Oda Murray just a few weeks after the broadcast.
Uh-oh.
But it was so many years later that this happened. No one made the connection until decades later. So if anyone wants more information, in the show notes is a link to Steve Hodel's website, but you could just go to stevehodel.com, STEVEHODEL, and find lots of information about this particular situation.
Okay, so all those mothers and grandmothers out there who told their little kids, "Now we can't have you listening to suspense because it might give you ideas." Ha ha ha. It gave somebody ideas.
Yeah, yes, it did. And you know, when you think you're being funny by saying that, this was something that dogged suspense for most of the 1940s. That it was meant for adults and not for children. So everybody who was a child had the sheets pulled over their head listening somehow.
Well, the reason I said that in a way was a little sly joke, but it's also a reference to my friend Ken Greenwald, because he told me, and of course Ken passed away a year or so ago, but
yes.
He told me that when he was young, he loved suspense, but his mother adamantly refused to let him listen to it, and insisted that if she caught him listening to suspense, he would be in big trouble. And so he told me he would go in his room late at night, pretend to go to sleep, and he had a little transistor radio that he put by his bedside, and he would move that from the nightstand right up to his ear and turn up the volume just enough to be able to hear it, and he got to hear suspense. suspense every week.
Yes.
So
good for Ken.
And he said
Yes.
that he knew other people, other kids his age, that were doing the same thing.
Same exact thing, yes.
So, yes, I was bringing it up to be a little bit funny, but also so I could tell this part of it.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. Some other trivia about this episode. William Spear, the producer, had a heart attack after this episode. That would plague him his entire producing career. In fact, for Donovan's Brain, which I know you've also done that was a two-parter on your series. He had a heart attack right after the East Coast broadcast of the first episode, and he was not there for the other broadcasts of that. So this is something that plagued him his entire career. There's another thing was Joe Kearns was typically being the man in black, but he's not in this episode. The actor Jim Bannon is substituting for Kearns because Kearns, somebody decided to beat Joe Kearns up in a bar, and he had a broken jaw.
Uh-oh.
So it's interesting how all these things can converge around that. So
and yet the show went on, and it sounds good.
The show went on, and they found Jim Bannon. He did it for about 8 weeks. Kearns was back acting again 3 or 4 weeks later on different series, and he did return to Suspense.
Right,
so,
right.
Yes.
He was on forever. All
yes,
right.
He was.
Anything else about this particular one? If not, we will adjourn until next week because you have 10 of these to do. So anything else before we go away for this week?
No, but I know next week, I think, is one of the many radio episodes based on a case of amnesia. I hope we remember to come back.
Well, I'll remember. It's up to you, but okay. I have to be here. You're here by choice. I'm here by demand. Anyway, okay. Dr. Joe Webb, thank you for your contributions to our tribute to Cornell Woolrich, which is just beginning. We'll be back next Thursday with another episode of Suspense, also written by Cornell Woolrich, and we will talk to you again then. Thank you.